Hi everyone, what's up? It's Leo here. Wow, what an adventure I've had last 2 weeks. Let me tell you, it's been crazy. I have been to 5 countries. No, I've been to 4 countries, and I'm going to tell you my experience and what it was like traveling in Europe for 2 weeks. So let's get on with the video. It has been the craziest 2 weeks of my life. I can undoubtedly say that because the experiences I've had, the people that I've met, places I've been, just everything was just amazing for me. I loved every single second of it. Apart from obviously the bad parts, but even then I loved it because it's the experience of traveling. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through the places that I've been to, the hostels that I stayed at, and then I'm going to go through them detailed one by one, say what were the good parts, what were the bad parts, and overall summarise how I felt in the country/city. And then I'm going to go more specific towards being trans and what it was like being trans and travelling, because there's not a lot of advice out there. So I wanted to give you guys some information and just to maybe help you guys out. If any of you watch this and are trans, I think it'd just be a good idea to just let you guys know how I felt. So the first city I went to on my own was Paris, and I stayed at the Les Piaux hostel. Highly recommend it, by the way. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Next, I stayed in Brussels. I stayed at the My Ninja hostel /2go4 hostel because I messed up my dates and I needed to book another night at a hostel. Third city that I went to was Amsterdam, and I stayed at Klinknoord. The next city I stayed at was Eindhoven. I stayed at the Blue Collar hostel. And then finally I stayed in Prague, which was the Brix hostel. 5 cities, 4 countries in 2 weeks. I know, it was a lot. I felt it personally, my energy levels were not good. But overall, like I say, it was an amazing trip. In Paris, I was with my dad. So my dad came for the Paris section of the trip. He helped me a lot actually to ease my nerves and make sure that I didn't feel like I was going in too deep too fast. Like being in a different city completely on my own for the first time ever. I've never been to Paris before. I know, scary. I kept all of my experiences in this travel journal, so throughout this video I will reference this. I wrote these notes actually while I was traveling to make sure, apart from Prague, because that was the last city. But yeah, I'm just gonna flip through this book. So in Paris, like I said, the hostel was amazing. I absolutely loved the hostel. I loved the people that I met in the hostel. I met so many amazing people. I just can't describe how great the people in the hostel made the experience for me. My back is itching, sorry. I loved the general feel of the hostel, the vibe, how safe it was. I felt personally very safe. The only problem was that there were gender toilets at the end of each corridor, which was kind of scary because obviously I don't know what gender is. But I got through it. I went to the female one most of the time just because I felt physically safer there. Not mentally, but I had to make some sacrifices while travelling, and that included me not necessarily presenting as the gender that I wanted to for safety reasons. And yeah, anyway, go back to Paris. I loved the hostel. I loved the culture of Paris. I loved the fact I didn't, feel like I needed to speak English all the time. I can speak a bit of French. I'm not very good, but I felt that if I spoke English in some places, people would not like that. So I liked the fact that I needed to challenge myself and use French as a way, to communicate with people. Because when you're in English, you just you speak in English. You don't really think about other people not understanding languages. And that was the kind of thing that kept popping up on this trip, as it would on a trip to different countries. People don't speak English as their first language. So I liked the fact that I could challenge myself that way. I did not really like how touristy Paris felt. I'm from London, so I'm quite used to busy cities and touristy areas. And me personally, I don't necessarily like it when it becomes too touristy. And I felt Paris was similar to London in that way. And not just the size of the city, but even just the touristy areas. Obviously the Eiffel Tower was, very, very, very busy. I think we actually managed to get there on the weekend, so hence why it probably just became a hell of a lot busier than it would even normally be. Maybe I said here some people were rude at some points. Which I think is, you could blame that on Parisian culture maybe. Don't want to get too controversial here, but I feel some Parisians can be not very friendly to tourists, and I don't really blame them, because I as a local in this city don't feel particularly inclined to tourists. Being a tourist in a different country, maybe it makes me feel more friendly to people who are tourists, because I know what it's like now. People who were actually going to the same city as I was in the same dates, roughly give or take a few days, so it was nice to kind of meet up with people along the way who I'd already met before in places like Paris and Brussels. So yeah, from Paris to Amsterdam, I had, you know, about 5 people maybe that I had already known, who I could like meet up with, and you know, I could just people I felt safer around than just strangers that I've just met. But yeah, that was kind of my experience of Paris. Obviously, like, I was with my dad a lot of the time, so I didn't necessarily like have the whole solo like travel kind of feel, but I was staying in a hostel on my own. So that kind of experience opened me up to a lot of new things that would help me along the way as I stayed on my own, completely on my own in different places. So now on to Brussels. Brussels was the first city that I stayed at completely on my own. I know, terrifying. I was terrified. Also excited though, as you would be when you're doing these new things. Found Brussels amazing. I thought it was the best city in terms of experiences, as well as just like the city in general and how the city felt to me. I was not expecting to be as amazed by the city, because it's, you know, a lot of people say don't bother going to Belgium, don't bother going to Brussels, there's no point, go to Bruges, go to a different city, you don't want to waste your time going to Brussels. But for me personally, I loved it. I loved the Delirium bar. If you ever go to Brussels, I highly recommend going to this bar, because it was the best part of this trip, I'm gonna say, just the highlight of the trip. Another highlight of the trip was a woman who actually randomly paid for my meal. We started talking, and then she just kind of took the bill and was like, I'll take that. And I was like, what? And I would. So that saved me some money, and also it was one of the nicest things everyone's ever done for me. And it really stuck with me throughout the whole trip, and I genuinely loved like that experience, and I was sure to pay back the gesture to other people, and I did so. I think in terms of speaking French, I didn't necessarily feel as pressured to speak French as I did in Paris, and although in Paris it was like a challenge for me, I felt relieved to kind of know that I could speak English and people would have a basic understanding of English, so I didn't have to bring out my crappy French that no one could understand at all. So I enjoyed the fact that people were friendlier in general, I guess, in Paris. Tonton Garbi, by far the best sandwich shop. The guys were lovely, amazing. I loved them so much. They were so nice to me, and the sandwiches absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going to Tonton Garbi if you go to Brussels as well. I also love the chocolates. I love chocolate in general, so it was really nice to like just have some lovely chocolates. Yeah, I just genuinely love Brussels as a city. The sights were great, the people were great, the experiences I had were great, and then the Delirium bar just tops it all off really. So yeah, Brussels was amazing. Now going on to Amsterdam, which took a deep drop in terms of my views and opinions of the city. My expectations were quite high for Amsterdam, especially after having such a great time in Brussels, but I was not as impressed as I should have been by the city. Me personally, I found the hostel too big. Klinknord is like kind of, it seems like a chain kind of hostel. I don't know if they have any, I don't think they have any other hostels, but it was acting like it was kind of this place that was very like big and above itself. It hosted events every night, which was good. I enjoyed the events, such as like karaoke, music bingo was very good, and I got chatted to some other people, but overall I didn't meet as many new people here as I would have liked to, and I think that's kind of what mostly made my experience of the city quite bad. I just felt quite isolated. I had a person who I met in Brussels who was staying at the same place, hostel as I was, but she was mostly hanging out with like her friends, which is, you know, everyone's entitled to do whatever they want, especially when you're solo traveling. But that kind of made me feel very like more isolated, because the people in my dorm were mostly groups of people, so I didn't necessarily like talk to them, and they didn't really feel the need to talk to me. I got high. Surprise, right? But I got high, and the experience for me personally, I didn't enjoy it a lot. I felt very paranoid while I was high. and I wasn't really surrounded by the right people. So I'd say definitely if you're going a solo trip to Amsterdam, just be careful. You might find yourself in a place that you feel uncomfortable, especially if you do try things like edibles and getting high. I had some nice highlights. The Van Gogh Museum was good, and the canals were nice to look at as well, and the views were very nice in general. Like, it is a nice city to take pictures of, obviously. And also I did cycle, although I didn't feel very special doing that, so that wasn't nice. I think I was just expecting a more sociable kind of experience, and I didn't really get that, which was a shame, because everything is really expensive in Amsterdam, and everything, like, I think most of the tourist places charge. I think the Cheese Museum is free or something, but most other places will charge you to look at the sites. I didn't even get close to the Anne Frank Museum. I tried to get tickets, but you have to queue up in the morning, and I was like 700 in the queue. So I thought, nope, not doing that. Overall, I wouldn't go back to Amsterdam. I maybe would go back in a group or with someone else, but on my own, I don't feel like Amsterdam is the city personally for me. Yeah, Amsterdam wasn't the city that I was hoping it would be. It was just a carbon copy of London, just with weed, in my opinion. I don't think the weather there is very nice. It's a shame that Amsterdam wasn't very nice, but I feel like it was an experience, and it was a lesson that I picked up as well, not to get high on your own. So that was a good one. Now we're going on to Eindhoven. So I only stayed in Eindhoven for a night because I was getting a plane to Prague. So and I was hoping to meet up with a friend in Eindhoven, but that didn't happen, unfortunately, which is sad, but I was only there for a day anyway. The city was quite quiet, obviously, compared to like the big capital cities, which was a nice change. It was nice to like not be surrounded by so many tourists. But at the same time, like, a lot of people obviously spoke Dutch and weren't necessarily thinking of speaking English as the first kind of language towards me. And I don't blame them for that, because I wouldn't do that if I was in their position, because it's not necessarily a very touristy place to go. I went to the Van Abbe Museum. I think that's how you say it. But I think that was good, yeah. I enjoyed that. It was probably the only good thing I did that day, to be honest. I was very tired. I couldn't check into my hostel until 4 though, so I was left with 2 bags for the whole day, because I got there at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't know Dutch, and that's a thing on me as a tourist, but I didn't know how to like kind of, if I just started speaking in English, maybe they would understand, and a lot of them did, which was good. But yeah, it was just kind of an awkward situation to be in, really, because they expect you to be touching you a lot. Yeah, I would probably not go back unless I was meeting with my friend who lives there, just because I didn't find there was much to do personally. I was only there for the airport, so yeah, overall Eindhoven was just not really a memory that I would kind of take forward, which is okay, you know. People go to cities and they won't like them, and that's perfectly fine. So the final city I went to was Prague. I'm filming this on the Monday. I came back on Friday. I spent the weekend in Brighton, so that's why I didn't film earlier. Yeah, so I've just come back Friday from Prague, and yeah, Prague was, I like, in terms of the visuals of the city, like, I think it was probably my favourite of all of them, even Paris, because Paris was more touristy. I enjoyed like the Charles Bridge, the Prague Castle. The Prague Castle was very good, and the general streets were very like aesthetic looking and aesthetically pleasing, which I personally I liked a lot, because I'm very about that aesthetic. In terms of the hostel had a very familial vibe, so a lot of the staff would kind of come out to the terrace and like talk to you or talk to other locals, and you really got like a kind of sense of what Prague was actually like. I spoke to like people who lived there and who lived in Prague. They kind of explained like some of the rules of the city and kind of how some of the laws of the city and how people just kind of go about day to day. And it was very interesting to see, because I haven't really spoken to many other locals in my other trips, so it was nice to kind of get that more local experience from people. The currency is obviously different to euros, so I had trouble figuring that out first, and I went to Prague without any Czech crowns on me, so I needed to buy some. Got a shit exchange rate, but I didn't really get a chance to have like the proper food, because I was very money conscious by then, so I was like kind of cooking for myself, and yeah, trying not to like buy as much food as I would. In terms of sleeping in the hostel, there was a guy like above my bed who was really strange, and that made me feel quite uncomfortable. And not very, I wouldn't say it was unsafe, I just didn't like his presence. He was always in the dorm, even in the afternoons, and you know, when you should be going out and enjoying the city, he was just in his dorm doing, I don't know what. hot. He was also shirtless all the time, which was just strange as well. But yeah, I just kind of, I walked around, I saw the John Lennon Wall, which was amazing, very touristy. The markets, I'll be at the clock tower. Every hour attracts a bunch of people, and they just kind of, they look on as the clock chimes, and you're there wondering what the fuck are you doing. I also looked at the Museum of Communism, which was another highlight because I enjoy history, and that was very interesting from a Czech point of view to see kind of the effects of things like the Cold War and World War II on them and themselves, and kind of what they've experienced. And yeah, Prague was good. Prague was a great city. Probably my second favourite if we're gonna order them. And yeah, I would probably go back to Prague just because I feel like I didn't get enough chance to just rest and take in the whole atmosphere, because you know, it is different to a lot of cities in Western Europe, and I feel like I didn't get a chance to experience that enough. So now I'm just going to kind of explain in more general kind of terms how I felt travelling as a trans guy. Probably some tips for you guys who may want to be travelling but too nervous to do it alone. As a trans guy, I felt uncomfortable to say the least. I actually met a trans guy in Paris. He was in the same dorm as me, and yeah, I felt very comfortable having another trans guy with me. That was pretty amazing. But in the other cities, like, nothing like that really happened. So a lot of people would perceive me as female first. Obviously I don't blame them, I'm not very male passing, despite what a lot of people think. Yeah, a lot of people would misgender me, and I wouldn't really correct them just because I felt very uncomfortable to do so, because the people that I'd met were just kind of strangers almost, because I didn't really know a lot about them. I didn't know their views necessarily on a lot of things. I didn't want to assume that they would just be okay with me coming out and saying, hey, I'm trans, especially in dorms such as the one in Paris and Prague, where there would be gendered toilets at the end of the corridor instead of en suites. Those situations made me feel particularly unsafe and uncomfortable if I tried to come out or present myself as completely male, which I tried to but failed to do so. So yeah, I think being pre-T and travelling, I was expecting that anyway. I wasn't expecting people to kind of say, hey, you're trans. A few people were very lovely about it and very understanding of the situation, even before I said anything to them, which was good. I appreciated that. I would just personally say, just be ready for that kind of thing and judge the situation. So if you don't feel safe disclosing that you're trans, just kind of go along with the flow. Like, people have seen you as a gender, you've just kind of got to go and see that out, because you probably only stay there for a few days and then you'll be gone, and you probably not see these people ever again unless you want to stay in touch with them. So I feel like, although it's difficult, you don't want to miss the experience of a lifetime just because of this one section of your life where you're not passing as being you, as being who you are. That will kind of be my main tip. Although it's very difficult, I kind of struggled towards the end of people always seeing me as female. And
oh shit, what up? It's Leo from the future, coming to tell you that I've got footage that is fucked up and not here. So here are some extra clips from my travels that I have not put in the video because there has not been space. So basically, going back to what I was just saying, I think being female, presenting when you're traveling and you're not, is bad, but you're only going to endure it for like a few days. So my tip would basically just be to keep it going and just, yeah, judge the situation, like I said. But that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a bit long, I know, and you can give me a like if you didn't understand a word that was said, because I don't think I can understand myself in some places. But I was tired, very tired. But yeah, like and subscribe, and maybe I'll come back to you with a better video next time that entails more joy and more fun. So keep it guys, keep it with me, please. I'm struggling. Okay, bye.